What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Barbecue Tips Podcast. I'm Christie Vanover, champion Pitmaster, the girl behind one of America's top barbecue websites, girlscangrill.com, and a contestant on Food Network's Barbecue Brawl. I'm here to bring you some quick barbecue tips to help you up your barbecue game. I'm sorry, guys. I have missed you for the past 2 weeks. I spent a week in Memphis, Tennessee at Smoke Slam, and then I had a barbecue competition last weekend here in Boulder City, Nevada. Smoke Slam was a huge success. We had so much fun. I was there cooking with cowboy charcoal and B&B charcoal. We served up thousands of portions of all sorts of barbecue that we cooked over live fire and over charcoal. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see much of the competition side, and I never made it out to Memphis in May because I was swamped at the demo tent. But it was so fun, and they've already set the dates for both Memphis in May and Smoke Slam for 2025. Again, the same weekend in Memphis, Tennessee. So we'll see. I'll probably head to one of them. We'll just see how things go. As far as my competition this past weekend, I finally got out of my rut. I don't know what's been going on lately. Getting calls has been a challenge for me for 2024. I haven't really changed anything, so I don't know what the issue's been, but I finally got some calls at the Best Damn Barbecue Fest. I got 9th in brisket, and I got 10th overall. And I didn't get any other calls and still made 10th overall. That's because one of the things when it comes to getting that overall score, that overall top 10 call, is you need to be consistent in all categories. What I find is you have to get a score of about 170 or higher in each category to even be considered for making that top 10 call. Because what happens is there'll be teams that score really well, 180, 170, 175 in a couple categories, but then maybe they're in the 160s in one category or maybe more. But if you as a cook can hit that 170 plus in all 4 categories, then you have a greater chance of getting that top 10 call. And that's what I did. I hit over 170 in chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. So why am I talking to you about so much score stuff? Well, because that's what today's podcast is all about. We are going to nerd out for a bit, and I'm going to dive deep into the judges' numbers and the judges' score sheets and some information that you may not even know that you have access to that can help you evaluate how you cooked to make you a better cook for next time, and so you can focus on exactly what you need to work on to get your scores up. So let's go. After the award ceremonies for every KCBS barbecue competition, you should be provided with a score sheet. Now, they used to print out multiple pages. You used to get your judges' table scores, plus the overall scores, plus each category score. At least on the West Coast, I don't know about everywhere else, but on the West Coast, they now only give you your table scores. That way they can save trees, save printing, hopefully speed up the time to where it gets to the award ceremonies. With this one sheet of paper, you can get a lot of information, but there's even more information out there. I'm going to tell you how to get that in a little bit. But let's start with the sheet that you do get. This sheet is titled Team Details. Right now I have in front of me the sheet that I got at the Best Damn Barbecue Challenge this weekend. If you're listening to this podcast, I recommend pausing and going and getting one of your team detail sheets. That way, when I talk about each of the columns, you're going to understand a little bit better what I'm referring to when I tell you what the columns mean. If you don't have any score sheets, maybe you've never competed in KCBS before, then go ahead and watch this podcast on YouTube, because there I will show my score sheet and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. If you also go to my website, Girls Can Grill, I'll also have some images there. So if you just want to read this whole podcast and get the details, you can find the information there, so it'll make more sense to you. So let's start with what this team detail score sheet is all about. So at the top, it's going to have your team name, your KCBS number, things like that. But then the very first column, which is on the left, is going to tell you what place you came in overall. So for instance, in chicken, I got 15th. So there were 33 teams and I placed 15th in chicken. Below that, I got 17th in ribs, 11th in pork, and 9th in brisket. The next column is going to show the category, and that's just the meat category, just like I talked about: chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. Then once you move over a column, this is where you're going to see your judges' scores. Every table has 6 judges. I've talked about this extensively in my previous podcasts, so go back and listen to those if you have questions about how the scoring all works when it comes to how they decide how to rate you based on the criteria of appearance, taste, and tenderness, and exactly what they're looking for. But if you look at the first column, under the judges section, you're going to see Judge 1, followed by Judge 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Under each judge, there's going to be 3 scores. The highest score they can give you is a 9. The lowest score they can give you is a 5. Unless you have a penalty or DQ, then they can give you a 1 or a 2. But traditionally, you're going to be between that 5 and 9 range, so long as you don't get any type of penalty. So you'll see 3 numbers there. So for instance, my first chicken score is 999. That's the highest score. That's a perfect score in my first judge for chicken. So I got a 9 in appearance, a 9 in taste, and a 9 in tenderness. Then you'll move on and you'll see the next judge, judge 2. So that's going to be 989 and continues down the row, and you get your 6 different scores. Then below judge 1, like I said, judge 1 gave me a 999, you're going to see the calculated score. The calculated score has a highest value of 36. The way that they get that is that KCBS has weighted scoring. So the appearance score is multiplied times 0.56. The taste score is multiplied by 2.2972. The tenderness score is multiplied by 1.1428. Lots of math in there. I know it gets confusing, but ultimately what that means is that the taste score is the highest value. So if you want to get a higher score, your taste has to be on point because that's going to get multiplied by the highest value. So if you take the 9 in appearance and you multiply it times 0.56, the 9 in taste, multiply it by 2.2972, and then the 9 in tenderness and multiply it by 1.1428, that value, the highest value you can get, is 36. There are 6 judges on the table, but for the most part, only the top 5 highest scores will count. So they'll take those top 5 scores, they'll add those together, and that's where you get your score. So if you had a 999 from 5 judges, that's 36 points each, times 5 judges is 180. So that's what they call a perfect 180. That means those top 5 judges gave you a perfect score. Now the 6th judge, even though it gets dropped, which is the lowest score, it does count in some instances. So if there was a tie, if there were 2 teams or even more teams that had the exact same score from the top 5 judges, then they would go down to that 6th judge and they would see what that score is. And the team that had the higher of the 6th score from the judge, they would then break the tie. As I mentioned, you heard the term perfect 180. That's when the 5 judges give you a perfect score. But there's also a perfect, and that's when all 6 judges give you a perfect score. That's really almost unheard of. It happens, but it's really, really rare. And if you get a perfect, then you get a special pin from KCBS. If you get a perfect 180, you get a pin too, but the perfect is even a more special pin. Okay, so I talked about that column, judge 1, you get your score 999. You get that calculated total using the formula. So for that, it would be a 36. But then below that is another row in that column called judge average score. What this is going to show you is how that judge scored as an average against everybody else on that table that you were competing against. Remember, when you have your table, let's just go with chicken, there are only 6, maybe 7 entries on that table that those judges are judging. So they're not supposed to judge you against the one they tasted before or after you. Each one is supposed to be judged independently, but still the scores are going to vary dramatically, and you may want to know, how did that judge score you compared to the other teams on the table? So if you look at that judge average score, for judge 1 for me for chicken, I scored a 36, but the judge's average score was 33 and some change. So I actually scored above average for my table, which is great. That's where I want to be. Now, this is where it makes a difference. If I go to Judge 3 didn't like my chicken. Judge 3 gave me a 977. So perfect appearance, 7 on taste, 7 on tenderness. There was something that judge didn't like. Sometimes with chicken, it can be your meat when it comes to tenderness. Maybe it just didn't have enough juiciness to them. Sometimes it can be your skin. Maybe your skin just didn't have the quite bite-throughness that it needed to have. I feel like mine did, but again, for some reason, this judge just didn't like what I was turning in. So my total calculated score as a 977 was 29.1200. That sucks, but I didn't like it. Fortunately, that was the low score for the 6 judges, so that one got tossed out, so it didn't really matter. But still, this is where I go and I look at the judge's average. Does this judge have a consistency of scoring low compared to the other judges on average, or did they just really hate something about my flavor profile and my tenderness? So if I look at it, my calculated score was 29.1200. 200. The judge's average score was 31 and some change. So I can see that I did score below average. So this judge did like some chicken from the other teams a little bit better. But if I look at that 31 and I compare it to the other judges on the table, I can see that they are an average low scorer. So Judge 1 has an average score of 33. Judge 2 had an average score of 33. Judges 3 and 4 were both in that 31 range. And then judges 5 and 6 had an average score of 32 to 33. So this judge scored me low, but they judge low consistently. So I don't feel quite as bad that they hit me hard because looks like they probably hit everybody a little bit hard. All right, let's move on past the judges columns to this next column. This is the column that is going to feed into some of this information that you really want to dive deep into once I show you how to get some of those other results. This is your table number. So for me, I landed on table 646. We don't have any idea what table 646 is. Just like they have blind judging when they get our boxes, so they don't know what my box number is. We don't know what judge table number 646 is. We don't know who sat at that table. They, shift the numbers around so it's all blind, which is good. But what I can find out is what other teams were on my table. And that's where things get interesting. But before we do that, we're going to move to the last column, which is rank. The rank column actually tells you what place you placed on your table. So for me, for chicken, I ranked third on my table. That means there were 2 other teams who landed on my table, table 646, who turned in better chicken than me, or at least better in the sense that the judges scored it higher. They liked it better. So from there, I can kind of evaluate and say, okay, who was on my table? What kind of chicken did they turn in? What's their flavor profiles? Where did they score higher? Was it appearance, taste, or tenderness? Those are the things that you can really dive deep into if you want to get a little bit crazy about the numbers, which I kind of tend to do. So again, I'm going to just give you a quick summary of what this sheet shows. Your team name, the place you got overall, the category, each judge's score, your calculated score, their average score for the whole table, the table you landed on, and the rank that you placed on that table. So that's the sheet that we got at the competition. Sometimes you'll also get comment cards if there are any, and occasionally you'll get one more sheet printed out, and that's the overall scores. And what that's gonna show you is all of the teams, how they ranked in order overall, and then it'll show each category and the total score that they got in each category, plus their total overall score. I like when they give me that sheet because right away I know how I placed overall if I didn't get a call. This other sheet doesn't tell me how I placed overall. It just tells me how I placed in each category. So I do find that overall sheet valuable. Most of the times they do provide that at competitions. They just print it on the backside. At Best Damn, they had some delays in the award ceremony, so I think they just gave us this score and drove us to the website to get the rest of the information. Before I move on to those other score sheets, let me address one thing. At this competition, there was quite a delay, and I just want to clear the air for anybody who had some confusion. Awards were supposed to be at 3 or 3:30. They ended up being closer to 5, and teams started to wonder, there's been a lot of talk in KCBS about scores and are they accurate? Well, I can tell you the Macintoshes out here on the West Coast, they run a tight ship. I've judged under them and I've cooked under them, and they make sure there are no errors when it comes to scores, and I appreciate that so much. I talked to Kelly afterwards to figure out what the delay was. 2 things caused the delay. 1, the organizer planned the awards earlier than the reps really could have been ready for, because there's just not enough time to calculate everything by 3:30 when the last turn-in is at 1:30. And then the other thing is that he said, in addition to doing a 100% audit of every score sheet and every digital entry, they also do a 100% audit of every comment card that's received. So they take that comment card, they match it with the score sheet, they match it with the digital entry, and there were more comment cards than usual during this competition, so that delayed things quite a bit. So no errors in scoring, per Kelly McIntosh, and I believe him 100%. It all came down to the auditing, and me as a cook, I would much rather it be a 100% clean audit with accurate results than announcing the results incorrectly and having to fix them later. Okay, you know your personal team results now. You should be able to figure out how to read that. But I want to show you where there are 2 more data sheets that you can get. Go to the KCBS website and click on events. You should be able to see recent events and event results. From there, you'll find the competition that you cooked in. Once the results are official, there will be a link that says official results in. You just click on that and then it will open up all of the results for the competition that you cooked at. And it doesn't even just have to be the one you cooked at. You can see the results for any competition. Also on that page, you're going to see the individual category scores. So if you click on that and maximize that box, you'll see the ranking for each team, the team names, and then the score that they got overall in that category. And it'll be all ranked by how the placement is. So that way you can see the score that everybody got in chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket, and you can kind of figure out how you fared, whether you were 0.1 points away from getting that top 10 call, or if you were pretty far off and you have some work to do. So that's all interesting and that's all good, and I think that that's valuable, but the data that I love the most, that you have to make a little bit of effort to get, are the summary score sheets. So just below the overall and all of those categories is a button that you can click that will open up a PDF. And this PDF is gold in my opinion, because this tells you how every team actually did, and it shows you who else landed on your table. So who you were kind of competing with as the judges tasted your food compared to another team's food. So let's just look at chicken for an example. I told you that I was on table 646. So I can take this sheet and I can go down and look for 646. BMAC and Barbecue was on my table. If you guys don't know BMAC and Barbecue, they are one of the hottest teams on the West Coast, and they got reserve grand champion at the Jack Daniels last year. So competing against them on my table was no joke legit. Like, they are good. Being on their table doesn't mean that my chicken should be judged against theirs, because we're all supposed to get judged independently, but we're also human. So if a judge tastes their chicken and it is bomb, and then they taste my chicken and it's just not quite there, in a judge's mind, perhaps they may score me an 8 and them a 9. Things like that could happen. So being on their table is challenging, but personally, I love it. I want to beat the best, and to beat the best, you got to be on the table with the best. So I never balk at being on table with good cooks. But if that makes you nervous and you're turning in your chicken and you see a really good cook there, maybe you just want to wait a couple seconds, couple minutes, and try to land on a different table. That's up to you. It's whatever strategy you want to play. So again, looking at this chicken summary score sheet, I can go down and I can see all the different teams that were on my table, and I can see how each of the judges scored them. Now, it's not going to give me the breakdown of the score, like 998, 987, etc. What it is going to give me, though, is the total. So I can see that BMACN, the first judge gave them a 31.4172 in chicken, but they also got 336s. So they had one judge that just scored a little bit lower, but the other judges scored them really high. So why does that information matter to me? Well, like I said, I got 15th place in chicken. I want to see all the other teams that beat me. What did they do in chicken that was different? Was it that my appearance needed some work, my taste needed some work, my tenderness needed some work? I can go and I can look at all of their scores, look at the different judges, especially the ones on my table, to do a comparison. Now, this tally sheet doesn't show me the exact appearance, taste, and tenderness score that they got, but I can go, for example, to judge number 5 and see that they gave a 33.7028, and I have a spreadsheet that tells me what that score is, which is a 989. So I have created a spreadsheet that has every combination from 9 to 5 that you can get from a judge and what that judge total would be. If you want to see that spreadsheet, I'll send it to you for free. There's a link in the show notes that you can click on. You'll just have to send me your email and I'll get you the link so you can have that same spreadsheet so you can evaluate these scores even better. So why does that matter to me? Well, I want to know if my competitors are getting dinged in appearance, taste, or tenderness. If it's appearance, they're likely going to fix that on the next round. They're probably not going to make that mistake again. If a team scored higher than me on taste, maybe there's an opportunity that they'll let me taste their food and I can see what it is that the judges are loving. And maybe they scored higher or lower than me on tenderness. So it's worth having a conversation. Hey, do you brine? Do you inject? What are you doing that maybe makes your meat more tender or less tender than mine? And same thing, they may be interested in what I'm doing. Let's say I scored higher in tenderness. They might be interested to know, did I brine or inject my chicken, or both? And together we can kind of figure things out. I will say that in the barbecue community, we're all pretty open about most of our techniques. We might hide some secrets, like maybe the exact taste of rubs and injections and stuff we're using, like the formulas. But other than that, we're pretty open. It's a really fun community, and that's what I like about barbecue. We all want to beat each other on their best day. There's so many people who do classes who give their full secrets, and they still win world championships because it really comes down to you as a cook and how good you are. But again, spark up a conversation with those teams that are scoring higher than you, and be open to help the teams that are scoring lower than you to help them out so they can see their journey improve. You may have also heard the terms angel table or table of death. Let me explain to you what that means. If you look at these score sheets, you can see the table numbers, and you may see in the top 10 that there's one table number that continuously on every category is scoring toward the top. That's called an angel table. Similarly, at the bottom, you may see that there's a table that continuously scores the bottom 10. That's the table of death. Those judges just tend to score lower. If you land on a table of death, there's not much you can do about it. You may not get your top 10 overall call. If you land on an angel table, you're probably going to be pretty lucky, and that might help you get your higher scores. That's just something that's uncontrollable. I know this has been a lot of information, a lot of number crunching. We're into barbecue, not necessarily into numbers, but if you want to up your barbecue game when it comes to competition barbecue, I highly recommend that you dive deep into your scores. I've got one more bonus for you guys. If you click on the link in the show notes, I will send you my score sheet. So this is a Google Sheets that you can copy and make your own. You can add any event. You can add in your scores that you get in appearance, taste, and tenderness. It will automatically calculate what your scores are. It will automatically drop out that low score from judge number 6, and it'll tell you what your total is for each category and overall, and it will average out your taste, tenderness, and appearance scores. Then you can use this for every competition, and you can look at it and see where you're improving or where you are not improving, and some of the things and changes that you can make so that you can become a better competitive cook. I know this information has been a lot, so if you guys have questions, leave me a comment below or shoot me a DM. As always, you can find thousands of barbecue tips and hundreds of barbecue recipes, including some of my competition secrets, at girlscangrill.com. You can also follow me on all the socials at Girls Can Grill. Until next time, guys, good luck if you're competing this weekend, and happy grilling.